For academics, it often feels as if writing a paper or a talk, a lecture plan, or maybe even a project proposal is much harder than any other forms of writing. And this isn't surprising. As researchers, we tend to put a lot of stock and a lot of ourselves into our work. So when it comes to the time where we have to convey it to the rest of the academic community or the general public, it's really hard to let go of it without making it as perfect as we can get it. But there are some tips and tricks that you can use to write even when it feels like there is no inspiration striking you and you still have to get it done. One of my favorite things you might have heard about already is called timed sessions. Now, you've probably heard of Pomodoros, which are these little 25-minute chunks of focused time in which you will turn off your phone, close your internet browser, and forget about your email inbox. You turn down the timer, you focus on one task and one task only. If any other ideas or things from your to-do list pop into your head, you write them down on a piece of paper on the side and forget about them until the end of the session. At the end of the session, you take a look at what you've done and you take a break and revise whether there's something else you need to do, whether these ideas that you got need some work or not. This is often very helpful for academics who work in environments where there's a lot of discussion. There's daily meetings, talks, lectures, students knocking on their door. You put a sign on your door saying, "I'm working right now," turn on a Pomodoro, ignore your email, and work for 25 minutes at a time. Most people find it very useful to get to work an hour early before anybody else shows up, when it's nice and quiet, nobody's distracting them, and that's when they turn on their timers. If this doesn't work for you, a level higher is including a reward system. Oftentimes, if you really want to get something done but you don't feel like it, you can set a little prize for yourself at the end of the goal. For example, I work on this and then I go get ice cream. Or I get to plan my weekend trip once I'm done. But an important part of this planning is to never try to plan based on result. Always plan on effort. This is something psychologists talk about a lot. Especially for academics, this is important because we do a lot of things at once. We teach, we lecture, we mentor students, we work on our own research, we write papers, we write project proposals, we go to conferences. And if you say, for example, this week I'm going to write 4 pages for this paper, and something comes up and you don't get it done, this might lead you to very negative thoughts about yourself, and we want to avoid that. So instead, what you can do is say, this week I'm going to do 2 writing sessions each day, and see where it gets you. I promise you will feel better about yourself if you put in the effort, regardless of what kind of result you get. If this internal motivation doesn't work for you, there's always writing groups. Oftentimes at universities or campuses, research institutions, you will find so-called dissertation writing groups or paper writing groups. And these are usually academics and students that get together once a week for an hour or 2 hours, sit down together and exert peer pressure. You come down to the group with your laptop, with your work, a timer starts, and everybody around you starts working, so there's nothing for you to do other than work for yourself. If this group doesn't exist on your campus, you might think about starting it. Even if there's not that many people interested, if you force yourself to work and to be regular and diligent in these weekly sessions, you'll see a good result already. And sometimes even fiction writing groups may accept academics, such as the famous Shut Up and Write group. They're usually in big cities and they meet once a week. You sit down, a timer starts for an hour and you write. This is where I go through most of my inbox contents. It genuinely helps when you don't want to do something, when everybody around you is doing it and they're quiet, you have to get it done as well. And an important part of writing is, for academics, including references and making sure that everything fits within a narrative of your research question. A couple of tips that my own master's supervisor gave me when I was just starting out in science were: don't stop writing. If you're in the middle of a sentence and you think of a reference, don't stop. It's going to be so hard to get back into what psychologists call the flow. Instead, use a little to-do list, a little marker. Maybe color a word red as you're writing and keep going so that when you're done with your writing session, you can come back to it. What I often use is two letters that almost never come together in the English language, T and K. So I just write TK wherever there should be a reference, and when I'm done writing, I search for TK, I include the references.